My name is Sophie. I am 28 years old and I live in a small town called Seabreeze Bay, just a few minutes' walk from the ocean. Life here is slow and peaceful. Mornings smell like salt and fresh bread from the little bakery. Evenings are filled with the sound of waves and the distant laughter of children playing near the pier. I work at the Seabreeze Hospital, a modest place with white walls and sunny windows. My job is simple but important. I help patients at the front desk, organize paperwork, and sometimes assist nurses when they are short on hands. It's a good life. Quiet, simple, or at least it was. Before Liam, my world was simple. But love has a way of slipping into your life without asking. Liam was charming. His voice was deep and kind. His laugh could fill a room. When we met at the hospital, he was visiting a patient. It felt like fate. At first, I didn't know he was married. I didn't ask, and he didn't tell. By the time I found out, my heart was already tangled. It was wrong, I knew it. But feelings don't always listen to reason. We saw each other in secret for a few months. Every stolen smile, every whispered conversation built a house of cards between us. And I was the one holding my breath, afraid it would all fall. It did. One evening, standing under the soft golden lights outside a small cafe, Liam told me he would never leave his wife. He cared for me, yes, but not enough. Not enough to change his life. Not enough to choose me. I remember walking home that night, the cool wind biting at my skin. The ocean waves roared in the distance, loud and cruel like laughter. And inside me something broke, quietly, without a sound. I ended it. The days after felt strange, like waking up in a world where everything looked the same but nothing felt familiar. Part of me missed him the way you miss a bad habit. But deeper down, I knew I had done the right thing. I poured myself into work. I spent weekends with my friends, sitting on sandy beaches, letting the sun kiss my face, trying to remember what it felt like to laugh without sadness underneath. Slowly, life found a new rhythm. I started breathing easier. One soft afternoon, after a long shift at the hospital, I decided to walk through Willow Park, a quiet stretch of green by the cliffs where the sea kissed the land. The sun was warm on my back, and the breeze smelled of jasmine and salt. As I wandered under the old fig trees, a voice called out, "Sophie." I turned, heart skipping. A man was walking toward me, smiling wide, eyes crinkling at the corners. It was Ethan, an old friend from college. We hadn't seen each other in almost 6 years. "Ethan, wow, what are you doing here?" I laughed, surprised. We hugged, a little awkwardly at first, then warmer. He smelled like soap and sea air. "I just moved back," he said. "Got a job at the primary school, teaching science to noisy 12-year-olds. I laughed again, feeling a lightness I hadn't felt in a long time. He asked if I had time for coffee. I said yes. We sat at a small cafe near the park, a cozy place with blue chairs and white tablecloths. We talked for hours about life, about dreams, about all the stupid things we used to do in college. Ethan wasn't like Liam. There were no heavy silences, no guessing games. When Ethan spoke, it felt real, like stones dropped into a clear pond. Over the next few weeks, we met often, sometimes for coffee, sometimes just to walk by the cliffs and watch the sun fall into the sea. I found myself laughing again, real laughter, not the broken kind. And slowly, without even realizing it, I stopped missing Liam. One golden afternoon, as gulls wheeled overhead and children flew kites in the park, Ethan and I sat side by side on a bench. He turned to me, brushing a strand of hair from my face, and said, "I'm really glad we ran into each other that day, Soph." I smiled. I am too. As the days grew longer and the air turned sweet with the scent of spring, Ethan and I grew closer. We spent our weekends exploring hidden beaches, climbing over rocks, finding small pools filled with tiny crabs and shimmering shells. We laughed at silly things like getting soaked by unexpected waves, and we talked about serious things too, like dreams we were too scared to say out loud before. With Ethan, it was easy, natural, like breathing. One evening, after a lazy walk along the boardwalk, we sat on the beach watching the sky melt into shades of orange and pink. Ethan leaned back on his hands, gazing at the horizon, and said, "Sometimes I wonder if we're all just trying to find someone who feels like home." His voice was soft, almost lost in the breeze. I looked at him, the way his brown hair ruffled in the wind, the way his eyes stayed fixed on the endless sea. And for a moment, just a moment, I let myself wonder. Could he be my home almost a year past like that? Steady, kind, full of small joys and soft mornings. I trusted Ethan. Or at least I thought I did. One Friday afternoon, after my shift at the hospital, I decided to surprise him. He often went to a little cafe called the Sailor's Cup after work, a small place tucked between a bookstore and a surf shop. I imagined his face lighting up when he saw me walk in. Maybe we'd laugh. Maybe we'd sit by the window, sharing a slice of carrot cake like we always did. I smiled to myself as I pushed open the door, the little bell above chiming sweetly. But then I saw them. Ethan was sitting at a corner table. Across from him sat a woman. She was beautiful, tall, graceful, her long dark hair catching the light like silk. They were leaning in close, laughing, their heads almost touching. My heart twisted painfully. I stood frozen by the door, the world narrowing to just that table, just that woman, just Ethan smiling in a way I thought was only mine. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. Who was she? Why hadn't he told me? Was I just someone to pass the time until someone better came along? The questions screamed inside me, loud and panicked. I didn't know what to do. Should I walk over and act like everything was fine? Should I pretend I never saw anything? In the end, I did the only thing my shaking legs would allow. I turned and fled. The walk home was a blur. The salty breeze, the cries of seagulls, the fading sunlight, it all felt distant, like a dream I couldn't wake up from. Inside my little apartment, I curled up on the couch, still wearing my scrubs, and stared at the blank wall. I didn't cry. Not yet. I just sat there, feeling the awful, familiar ache of betrayal creep back into my chest. Had I been foolish to trust again? Had I learned nothing from Liam? That night, sleep didn't come. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Ethan's smile, but it wasn't smiling at me. It was smiling at her. The next morning, gray light spilled through my window, cold and unwelcome. I hadn't slept more than a few hours, and my body felt heavy, like I was carrying stones inside my chest. I made tea but forgot to drink it. I fed my cat Milo but forgot to pet him. My mind was stuck on one endless question. What if everything I believed about Ethan was wrong? Around noon, my phone rang. It was him. "Hey, Soph," Ethan's voice was cheerful, light. "Do you wanna go for a walk later? It's a beautiful day." I stared at my phone, heart pounding. How could he sound so normal? How could he pretend nothing happened? I swallowed hard. My throat was dry. "Sure," I said, surprising myself. "Let's meet at the park." Maybe I needed answers. Maybe I needed to see if he would lie to my face. At 4 o'clock, we met under the big fig tree near the entrance of Willow Park. Ethan smiled when he saw me, his hands tucked casually into the pockets of his jacket. "Hey, you look beautiful," he said warmly. I forced a smile. Inside, my heart was a drumbeat of fear and anger. We walked for a while, talking about small things, the weather, work, how the cafe added a new caramel pie to their menu. But I couldn't focus. My mind kept flashing back to the sight of him and that woman. Finally, as we reached the cliff overlooking the sea, I stopped. My hands were shaking. I turned to him. "Ethan," I said quietly, "I need to ask you something." He looked at me, his smile fading a little. "What is it, Soph?" I took a shaky breath. "I saw you yesterday at the Sailor's Cup. You were with someone." His eyes widened slightly in surprise. I kept my voice steady. "You looked close." I thought maybe she was your girlfriend." The words nearly choked me. There was a long, terrible pause. The waves crashed against the rocks far below us, loud and endless. Ethan blinked. Then he laughed a soft, almost relieved laugh and shook his head. "Oh, Sophie," he said, reaching for my hand. "That wasn't my girlfriend, that was my cousin Grace." I stared at him stunned. "Your cousin?" I echoed. "Yes," he said, squeezing my hand gently. "Grace just moved to Seabreeze Bay. She doesn't know many people yet. I was just helping her get settled." I searched his face desperately for any sign of a lie. But all I saw was honesty, open and simple. Still, the part of me that had been broken before was scared, terrified. "But why didn't you tell me?" I whispered. Ethan sighed. "I didn't think it was important. It was just coffee. I didn't want to make you worry about nothing." I looked down at our joined hands, feeling tears sting my eyes. "I'm sorry," I said, voice shaking. "I guess, after everything with Liam, it's hard for me to trust." Ethan cupped my face gently, lifting it so I could see the kindness in his eyes. "It's okay to be scared, Soph," he said softly. "But I'm not him. I'm not going anywhere." The tears spilled over, hot and blinding. And for the first time in a long time, I let someone hold me when I cried. That evening, we sat by the sea, sharing fish and chips from a paper bag, watching the stars appear one by one in the velvet sky. I realized something important that night. Trust isn't given once. It's given again and again, choice by choice, day by day. And sometimes learning to trust again is the bravest thing you can do. A few nights later, we had dinner at a small Italian restaurant tucked away on a quiet street. The lights were dim and golden. The air smelled of fresh basil and warm bread. Ethan poured me a glass of sparkling water and smiled across the table. But I could feel it, a knot in my chest, tight and pulsing. I had to tell him. About Liam, about my mistakes. I didn't want there to be secrets between us. I pushed my fork around my plate, searching for the right words. Finally, I said, almost in a whisper, "Ethan, can I tell you something?" He put down his glass and leaned in, his full attention on me. "Of course." I looked down, gathering courage from the soft candlelight. "Before you and I, before we found each other again, I was with someone. Someone I shouldn't have been with." Ethan didn't speak. He waited. His patience gave me the strength to go on. "His name was Liam," I said, my voice shaking. "He was married. I knew it was wrong, but I cared about him anyway. It ended when I realized I was only ever going to be someone he kept in the shadows." A tear slipped down my cheek. I'm not proud of it. Sometimes I still feel ashamed. I finally looked up. Ethan's eyes were gentle. He reached across the table and took my trembling hand in his. "Sophie," he said quietly, "thank you for trusting me with that. You made a mistake. You learned. That doesn't make you weak. It makes you strong." I felt my whole body relax, like a heavy weight sliding off my shoulders. "You're not your past," Ethan added. "You're the person standing in front of me now, and I'm proud of her." I smiled through my tears. In that moment, I knew Ethan wasn't just someone I liked. He was someone I could trust with the broken, messy, imperfect parts of me, and he wouldn't run. Over the next few months, we built something real. It wasn't flashy. It wasn't perfect, but it was steady. We helped each other with small things, moving furniture, fixing leaky sinks, carrying groceries. We laughed until our sides hurt watching silly TV shows. We held each other through thunderstorms and bad days. We were building a life, brick by brick, kindness by kindness. Then, one afternoon in early spring, everything changed again. It was a Saturday, bright and windy, with the scent of fresh rain still lingering in the air. Ethan had suggested a picnic at Cliffside Park, a place where the ocean stretched out like a vast blue secret, and the cliffs dropped steeply into crashing waves below. I packed sandwiches and fruit. He brought lemonade and a thick old blanket. We found a quiet spot near the edge where the grass was soft and the breeze played with our hair. We ate, we talked, we laughed. The sun dipped lower, painting the world in gold. I leaned back, closing my eyes, feeling the warmth on my face. When I opened them, Ethan was kneeling in front of me. My heart stopped. He looked nervous and excited. His hands fumbled a little as he reached into his jacket pocket. He pulled out a small box, simple and dark blue. My breath caught in my throat. "Sophie," he began, his voice rough with emotion. "I never expected to find you again. And I never thought I could feel this sure about someone." The wind tugged at his hair, and he smiled that crooked, honest smile that had undone me from the very start. "You're my best friend, my safe place, my home. I want to build a life with you, a real one, full of mornings and dinners and quiet Sundays and all the messy, wonderful in-betweens." He opened the box. Inside was a simple ring, a delicate silver band with a small, shining diamond that caught the last rays of the sun. "Will you marry me?" he asked. The world went still. The ocean, the cliffs, the gulls crying overhead, they all faded into nothing. All I could see was him. Ethan, my Ethan. Tears blurred my vision. I nodded, unable to find my voice. Then finally I whispered, "Oh yes." He slipped the ring onto my shaking finger. It fit perfectly. We laughed through our tears, clumsy and overjoyed. He pulled me into his arms and we stayed there, wrapped up in each other, as the sky turned pink and the stars blinked awake one by one. That night, lying in bed with the window open to the sea breeze, I thought about everything that had led me here. The mistakes, the heartbreaks, the loneliness, all of it had shaped me. All of it had led me to Ethan. And I realized, maybe life isn't about finding the perfect person. Maybe it's about finding the person who chooses you every day and choosing them back again and again. The wedding was small, just family and a few close friends. We got married on the cliffs where he proposed, the sea roaring its approval below us. I wore a simple white dress. He wore a navy blue suit and a smile that lit up his whole face. When I said I do, it wasn't just a promise to Ethan. It was a promise to myself, a promise to trust, to hope, to believe that sometimes, even after all the storms, love can come quietly, beautifully, and stay. Years have passed now. Our life is not perfect. Sometimes we argue about silly things like who left the window open or who forgot to buy milk. Sometimes we get tired. Sometimes we get scared. But we always come back to each other. We always choose each other every single day. And that is everything. Sometimes, when the sun sets over Seabreeze Bay and paints the world in soft gold, I sit on our porch with Milo curled up in my lap and Ethan's hand resting gently in mine, and I think, trusting again was the hardest thing I ever did. But it was also the best. Thank you for listening to my story. If you enjoyed it, please like, subscribe, and share. And wherever you are in your journey, I hope you find a love that chooses you too.